Hey there, my friends. Welcome to this month's real estate market report for the city of Cape Coral. This is for the month of March 2024. The first couple of months have absolutely flown by in the year of 2024, and I can't believe we're already in the first week of March. So thank you for being here. If you're not familiar with this channel, I do a monthly market report video for the city of Cape Coral every single month. And in addition to that, I do weekly videos on informational topics that are just pertain to Southwest Florida and Cape Coral in general. Some are related to real estate, but some just are really good information that are useful to the folks that are interested in this area. So if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please reach over and hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to speed, not only on these monthly market report videos that I do every single month, but on the weekly informational videos as well. I have to apologize straight away for the tone of my voice. I haven't been chain smoking cigarettes due to the nature of the real estate market right now. I've just unfortunately caught a bug that my preschooler brought home. So if my voice sounds a little bit raspy, that's what's going on. But in any case, if you haven't watched one of these videos before, what I'm going to do is go over what the monthly stats of the Cape Coral real estate market have put up in the previous month. So I'm going to be talking about February. So we're going to give you the total stats, and then we're going to kind of break those down by category. I'll give you some of the numbers, both numbers of sales, the pricing, and some trends. This real estate market right now is all about inventory, and we're going to really dive into that pretty deeply here later on in the video. So make sure you watch to the end, because there are some concerning things that have to do with our inventory rising. I don't think it's anything to head for the hills over. I'm not gonna tell you to panic right now, but it is something that we need to pay attention to, and we'll get into that pretty soon. But first, I always like to start off these reports by going over the lowest sale and the highest sale in the entire city of Cape Coral for the previous month. So again, we're talking about February of 2024. So let's start off with the lowest sale that the market put up last month. All right, so the lowest sale in all of Cape Coral in the month of February was this little condo down here off of Coronado in the southeast section of Cape Coral. This one is on Southeast 6th Avenue in the Jasper Place condo. This home, or this condo rather, sold for $123,518, and that did mark it as the lowest residential unit that did sell last month. It honestly didn't look like it needed a whole lot of work to it. It was obviously dated. The condo's a little bit older, built in 1980. But that's a great area down in there, and the home sold in 22 days for $123,518. So congratulations on the sale of this little condo. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I'm sure the new owners are going to enjoy that, probably do a little bit of work to it, and that's going to be a nice place over there. So congratulations to the buyers and the sellers on that one. I'm going to also go over the lowest house, single-family home that sold in the market last month, because obviously single-family homes make up the majority of the market in Cape Coral, as you're probably aware. And so the lowest house that sold last month was this one in the Yacht Club. Obviously had some flood damage, some hurricane damage from a year and a half ago. But this one on Pocatello Court sold for $150,000. It's a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 846 square foot home. And like I said, I'm sure it was gutted in there. They don't show the photos on here. But this was an off-market sale, so this wasn't actually put out there for sale. It was just inputted as sale data in here. So as far as the recorded sales last month, this was the lowest single-family home that sold in all of Cape Coral in the month of February. All right, so now that we've checked out the lowest price sales in all of Cape Coral, let's get to the fun one, which is the highest sale in the month of February. And this month, it was a riverfront property. We hadn't seen a riverfront property take the top spot in a few months, but this one was right on the river in that Savona neighborhood of the Southeast. It's at 3817 Southeast 21st Place. It's a beautiful home right on the river there. It was listed at $3.57 million and sold for $3.3 million. This home was built in 2019, so it's not a brand new construction custom house like we've seen. A lot of the previous top monthly sales have been brand new construction homes. This one's a few years old, but it was a 3-bedroom plus a den, 4 full baths, just under 3,100 square feet of living area, again, right on the river there. And this was built by Windward Construction. Windward Homes have taken the top spot for a couple of the last few months. In fact, they set the record back in November. We had a $6+ million sale back in in November, actually in the same neighborhood, in this Savona neighborhood. I think it was 6.2 million is what the top sale was, and that set a record all time for Cape Coral. So good to see these $3+ million. There were 2 of these that were over $3 million last month. So it's good to see these really high-end homes still transferring at a fairly consistent rate. But congratulations to the buyers and the sellers and their agents on this property. This is an absolutely beautiful home. It was sold furnished, and $3.3 million took the top spot this month. All right, so let's jump right into the stats of the market. I always like to start off with just the total number of sales and the total median price across the board for everything, and then we'll go category by category and kind of break down some of these different types of properties. But what I'm talking about here is just residential units completely. So I'm not talking about lots. I'll talk about lots later on in the video, but this is just going to be residential units. So I'm talking about single family homes, condos, townhomes, things like that. And this in this situation, it's all lumped together. Again, we'll get down into the different categories after this, but the total number of sales for the month of February was 421, and that was a breath of fresh air compared to what January's numbers looked like. Back in January, we were only 305. If you watched my last month's market report, you saw that concerning number was considerably lower than the previous months had been in late 2023. But you know, quite honestly, January has always been a slower month for this market. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense because the closings that are occurring in January are due to people shopping and going under contract back in November and December. And there's not a lot of people shopping for real estate in November and December. People are often busy with the holidays. You know, you got Thanksgiving, you got family in town, and then of course you got Christmas and New Year's. And so people don't really start ramping up their shopping activity for properties until after the first of the year. So it makes sense that we're seeing more closings now in February versus that lower number in January. But again, 421 total residential sales in the month of January. That includes condos, townhomes, on water, off water, everything basically that's not commercial or vacant land. So the residential sales numbers have picked back up, and that's actually identical to what the number was back in February of last year in 2023. So 421 is exactly what we put up in February 2023, and that's what we put up this past month here in 2024. So it's good to see the numbers pick back up. I anticipate we'll continue to see those higher numbers as we get into March and April, when people start to really start closing on these properties in the main big portion of our season of the spring. In terms of the median sale price, take a look at this graph. This graph has been consistent for the last 12 months. It's really, statistically speaking, unchanged. We've been very, very flat for the last 12 months in terms of the actual median sale price. This past February was right at $400,000. That was down from $408,000 in January. But again, that's statistically not significant. We really haven't seen any upward or downward consistencies in terms of pricing in this market. Now our inventory is picking back up, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So we could see some downward pressure from these pricing as we get into especially the summer months of this year, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. But in terms of just the across the board median sale price for residential property in Cape Coral right now, been really, really flat. All right, so let's start to break down some of these stats. So again, I'm going to go into some different categories of properties, and we'll talk about the numbers on each one of those. And I want to start off with the largest segment of the market, and that is just single-family homes. Single-family homes are the vast majority of the homes that sell on any given month are single-family homes here in Cape Coral. Obviously, if you've driven around Cape Coral at all, you've noticed that single-family homes are the predominant type of residential property that we have here in the city. And of those 421 sales last month in February of 2024, 372 of them were single-family homes. And we'll break those down by a little bit more. That includes everything: golf access properties, on water, off water, homes with pools, homes without pools. But let's start with the off water single-family homes. So again, of those 372 single-family homes that sold, 263 of them were off water single-family homes. And if you look at the prices, we'll talk about the prices of those homes with pools and without pools. but the off-water homes without pools is what you can mainly consider maybe a starter home in Cape Coral. So again, homes that are not on a canal or a lake and homes that do not have pools. Median price, this graph has looked, again, very, very flat over the last 12 months. That's been consistent over the last 6 months that I've done these videos. This graph has just looked very, very flat. And I will say a lot more of these homes are selling, are newer construction homes. So we're seeing more new construction homes sell than actually, it's about 50% of the market. So if you talk about resales, really only about 50% of the market of these types of homes are resales, and 50% of them are brand new construction homes that some of these production builders like D.R. Horton or Lennar are building out here in Cape Coral. So $345,000 was the median price for off-water homes without pools in Cape Coral. That's down from $360,500 last month in January. But again, we're not really seeing a statistical difference from month to month on these properties. They'll be a little bit higher one month, a little bit lower the next month, and we've kind of bounced back and forth. But you can't really derive any sort of statistical pattern with these properties. So again, we're $345,000. Last year at this time in February, we were $360,000. Again, we were $360,000 last month, so we're about dead even to where we were last year, at least in terms of these median price. But again, there's more of these brand new construction homes that are selling, and that's keeping this median price pretty equal. I think if we didn't have those brand new construction homes, these resales are coming down a little bit in price just because we're seeing a little bit higher inventory of those on the market. And it's tough if you're a resale property to compete with these brand new construction homes that these production builders are able to offer at these really attractive prices, both prices and really attractive financing incentives. Of course, this property category, the vast majority of the homes that sell that are off-water non-pool homes sell using a mortgage. So these buyers are buying them with mortgages, and at 7+% interest rates right now, you know, it's a little bit harder if you're a resale single-family home seller out there to compete with a new construction home builder that's offering, you know, maybe 5.5%. It's a little bit tougher as a seller to offer those sorts of financing incentives. So that's why I think we're seeing our median price stay fairly even. I think these new construction homes are helping to float the market a little bit. But let's move over to homes with pools. And this one's the same story. Now we have fewer listings to go by, so these have kind of undulated up and down over the course of the last 12 or so months. But by and large, we're still pretty flat. There's not really a pattern going one way or the other. And so our median price for pool homes off water last month was $449,500. That's up about $10,000 from January. But again, that's bounced around. It's been as low as $427,000, and it's been as high as $480,000 in the last 12 months. So this is kind of just undulating back and forth, and I really don't think there's any statistical pattern here that's going in one direction or the other. But average pool home in Cape Coral, again, about mid 400s is what you can anticipate to pay right now, and that's almost probably $70,000 or $80,000 more than off-water single-family homes without pools. So you can basically infer that a pool, at least on the retail sales market, is going to make your property worth about $80,000 or so more than a home without the pool. So again, $449,500 is where the mark was this February 2024 for pool homes that are not on the water. All right, so let's get into everyone's favorite category of property, and that's the Gulf access single-family homes. So when I say Gulf access, I'm talking about basically homes that are on a body of salt water. So we're talking about mostly Gulf access saltwater canal front properties. There are a few riverfront properties tossed in here as well, like that top sale that we saw in the month of February. But in terms of numbers of sales last month, and again, there were 372 total single-family homes that sold in the month of February. This month was pretty good. February is pretty good for Gulf access homes. I kind of predicted that it would be because it goes up this time of the year consistently every year. But we had 72 single-family homes, Gulf access homes, sell in the month of February. That's up from 61 in the month of January. And it's actually just a little bit better than what we saw in February of 2023. So at least numerically speaking, from a number of sales standpoint, last February was 70, and this month we had 72. I think we can make a few more inferences as to what happened last year, because when we got into March, April, and May, the number of sales went up even further. So March of last year, we had 93 Gulf Access homes sell. April was 97, and then May went back down to 94, and then it dropped to 76 as we got to June. And that's always what happens. I mean, Gulf Access properties are very much a seasonal resident type of home. We have a lot more of the seasonal residents are the types, the retirees and things like that are the ones buying these Gulf Access properties. So we see a larger number of sales in those late winter, early spring months. And so it kind of makes sense that we're seeing some higher numbers now. So again, 72 in the month of February for 2024. And we'll inevitably see those numbers kind of creep up towards 100 per month as we get into March, April, and May. So we're looking forward to that. Now, in terms of the median sale price of Gulf Access single-family homes, we actually hit a 12-month high in the month of February. The median price for Gulf Access single-family homes in the month of February was $842,500. That's up from $775,000. You know, when we're talking about 60 and 70 properties, there's not a statistical sample size that's large enough to kind of make any statistical inferences in terms of the direction that pricing is going. I think our pricing, like the other categories that we've seen, is really kind of remaining pretty flat, and we may even see it tick up a little bit further from 842 as we get into March, April, and May, just because a lot of these homes that are selling in the spring seasons are a little bit higher dollar properties. So, you know, we're factoring in properties like that one that sold for $3.3 million. That's obviously bringing up the median sale price a bit. So we'll probably see it, you know, stick around that $800,000 to $900,000 at least for the spring, and then maybe it might go back down as we get into the summer months once the number of sales go down. But overall, we're looking really, really good, and we'll look to see more of these Gulf Access homes sell as we get into March, April, and May. And then taper off as it gets into June, and then go back down to some lower numbers in July. But, you know, by and large, we're looking pretty good for Gulf Access homes, at least on the sale side of things. Now, the inventory is creeping up like it is across the board with all other types of properties. So we're going to talk about that here in a minute, and we'll see how that's going to affect these prices as we get into summer. And hopefully we'll see some of these interest rates start to go down later this year, and that'll help us out on the demand side. But our inventory is creeping up on it, and I think it may affect our pricing as we get into the summer months. But we'll talk about that here in a minute. All right, so in terms of the residential properties, I saved condos to the last. So we're going to talk about condos now, and I don't break this up into any subcategories. So when I'm talking about condos, some of them are on the water, some are not. Some are townhomes, some are not. Some are high-rise condos, mid-rise condos. I've lumped them all together because they're really not a very significant portion of our Cape Coral real estate market. And condos are just getting beat up right now, to be quite honest with you. And a lot of that has to do with the rise in these HOA fees. We're seeing some, 20-30% rises in the monthly HOA fees on a lot of these communities, and that has a lot to do with a few different things, but mainly insurance. And that's kind of hurting this condo market a little bit. But at least we did tick up from January's number in terms of the number of sales of condos in the month of February 2024. We're back up to 40. We did 40 condo sales last month. That's up from 27 in January, and 27 was really the high point, or the low point, excuse me, for the last 12 months. It's actually longer than that, but on my graph here, at least it goes back at least 12 months, and 27 was probably the lowest in a couple of years, to be honest with you. So it's good to see that we had 13 more sales this past month than we did in January. But we're down from February of 2023 last year. Condos actually were doing pretty well last year, and I still quite haven't figured out exactly why they were doing so well. Single family homes kind of peaked out in 2022. They hit their price point highs in 2022. Condos, the high point for prices of condos hit in 2023 last year in the spring. And I think maybe that had a lot to do with the fact that we were coming out of the hurricane and people were concerned about that, and maybe we're feeling a little bit better about condos than single family homes at the time, whether it was for flood reasons or windstorm or whatever it was. But we are down obviously at the start of this spring season in terms of the number of properties that are selling. Now, in terms of the median sale price, this is the one category where we can pretty much see a clearly defined pattern that we are going down in median prices. And we just hit a 12-month low in the month of February of 2024, and honestly, it's probably going back another at least 12 to 28 or 12 to 24 months beyond that. But at least for the last 12 months, we're at a low point at 252,750 was the median sale price. Again, we don't have a really big sample size of condos on these, so it's tough to make really generalized inferences as to how much of a reduction we are seeing in pricing. But if you look at the graph, I mean, it's pretty clear that month after month, on average, we've been kind of going in the wrong direction in terms of condo pricing. And again, I think that has a lot to do with affordability. Yeah, we're dealing with the interest rates certainly, but we've got the double whammy of the interest rates that are hitting us, and then these condo fees increasing on top of that, just really hurting the affordability, and it's driving some of the buyers out of the market, and the ones that are left are fighting over a very increased number of inventory of properties that are for sale right now. So obviously, just the basic laws of supply and demand, we're going to see those prices come down a little bit as these condo owners sort of fight each other for these smaller number of buyers that are out there. But 252,750 was the lowest median price that we saw all last year. That's down from February of 2023. We're at 295. And again, the high point, the all-time high for condos in Cape Coral was in April of last year at 302,475. So we're down a full $50,000 just about from the high point of April of last year. Hopefully, we will see those numbers kind of catch up a little bit, maybe tick back up in March, April, and May. We should see the number of condos go up a little bit. That's what we see. Again, condos, very much like Gulf Access homes, are largely seasonal residents. So we're seeing more of those residents shop in these late winter and spring months. So we should see the condos, at least number of sales, go up a little bit as we get into March, April, and May. I know last year, again, we had 45 sales in February of last year, and then in March it jumped to 75. So with us at 40, hopefully it'll jump up closer to 70 condos that sell in the month of March. And hopefully the median price will kind of scoot back up a little bit, but we'll just have to see. It's getting really tough for condos right now, not just in our area, but across the entire state of Florida. Everything's happening the same way out there in terms of the insurance rates going up, and so these condo fees are just putting a dampener on buyers' affordability. So we'll probably continue to see prices be at best a little flat, and maybe even go down a little more as we get into the later months of 2024. Hopefully, our insurance rates will kind of loosen up a little bit, and maybe we'll get some more competition into the market and drive down some of those costs, so buyers' affordability can go back up. And then maybe when that coincides with the interest rates coming down, we'll start to see the condo market doing a little bit better. But in terms of where we're at right now, condo market's probably the worst out of all the categories of residential properties out there. It's just tough to be a condo seller right now, to be honest with you. Okay, so let's get into vacant lot sales. The vacant lot sales, and I'm talking about residential vacant lots here in Cape Coral. The vacant lots, at least from a number of sales standpoint, have kind of bounced around this whole past 12 months, as you can kind of see on this graph. But we are up from the month of January, very much like a lot of the other categories. We did 213 vacant lot sales last month in the month of February 2024. That's up from 168 in the month of January, and that's up quite a bit from last year at this time. February of 2023, we only had 141 sales. Now that bounced back up in March, April, and May of last year. So 141 sales isn't necessarily out of the ordinary for February. If you can recall, we were still dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Ian. So I think that artificially kept the numbers a little bit low back there in February, but 213 is a pretty healthy number of vacant lots in terms of the ones that sold last month. So pleased to see that. So let's talk about a couple different categories. Let's specifically talk about the non-golf access lots. So the majority of those 213 sales were these non-golf access lots, basically lots that are not on a body of water where you can get out to the Gulf of Mexico. So of those 213 sales, 200 of them were non-golf access lots. So again, it makes up the bulk of these sales. Now the median price for those non-golf access lots actually was up from it's a 12-month high basically at $48,500. I'm losing my voice, so if I may have to come back later after my voice comes back, so I apologize. But $48,500 was a 12-month high. It beat out February, was our previous 12-month high at $47,500. So we were a full $1,000 higher than we were this time last year. So vacant lots, by and large, are still doing very, very well, and we're pleased to see those numbers stick around the mid to high 40s for these non-golf access lots. Now, if we want to talk about the number of golf access lots for sale, again, we had only 13 of them sold in the month of February, and those prices, it's tough to kind of tack down an accurate median price that really means anything when you're only talking about 13 lots that sold last month. It's kind of tough to draw a meaningful number out of those. But our median price for those 13 properties was $260,000. That's up from $227,500. But again, there's a lot of variables that go into those when you're talking about only 13. If there were more properties that had seawalls last month that sold, that's obviously going to pull that number up. If more properties sold in the Southwest versus the Northwest, that's going to pull the median range up. So I think by and large, our pricing has remained somewhat flat on both the golf access and the non-golf access vacant lots. But at least in terms of the non-golf access lots, the ones that are not on the water, we're still consistently seeing pretty good pricing on those. We haven't seen any downward pressure on them, and our inventory is not too bad on lots, and that's a little bit different in comparison to some of the other categories of residential properties. So let's go ahead and get into these inventory numbers. I know that's the most important part of what this market is going through right now. So let's look at some of the different categories of the active inventory, so the active number of residential sales that are on the market in each of these categories. All right, so let's start out with the active inventory of vacant lots, and quite honestly, they're the best news for property values right now are in the vacant lots, because if you look at this 5-year graph, we're basically at a 5-year low point for the number of active listings that are for sale in Cape Coral for non-golf access lots. You can see we're way down here. There's just under 2,100 total vacant lots for sale in all of Cape Coral that are not on golf access canals. And you know, when you look back at 2019 in a quote-unquote normal market, 2019 we had over 4,700 properties for sale in January of 2019. That jumped up to over 5,100 later in that year, in the April and May of 2019. You know, we were over 5,100 lots for sale, so we are down at under 2,100 right now. That's very good news for the lot sales, and I really think that's why we're seeing that consistency in our pricing over the last 12 months for those vacant lots. And in some cases, they're even going up. And like I said, for last month, we saw a 12-month high in those non-golf access single-family home lots. You know, so our pricing's looking pretty good because our inventory is staying relatively low. Now, in terms, if we want to talk about golf access lots, check this out. This is a 10-year graph for golf access lots, this active inventory. So this is the number of active listings that are out there for golf access single-family lots. And again, we're not quite at a 10-year low point here, but we're certainly down there when you look at the course of the last 10 years. You know, back in 2016, we were consistently over 900 golf access lots for sale at any given month. So for us right now in the month of February to only have 437 active listings on the market, basically less than half of what we saw back in 2016 and 2017, Inventory is looking pretty good for golf access lots as well. Now, you can make the case because there's not a really high demand right now for golf access lots. We're only selling 13 of those. So when you have 437 of them on the market and only 13 are coming off at any given time, it's really kind of showing a stagnation in that section of the market, at least right now. So assuming that interest rates come back down a little bit later this year, and hopefully construction costs come back down a little bit, people are going to start buying up these golf access lots a little more and building a few more of these really nice golf access homes on these lots. So we'll just have to see how that works. But definitely when you look at over the course of the last 10 years, we're still in pretty good shape in terms of the active inventory of both golf access lots and non-golf access lots. All right, so let's jump back into regular residential properties. So again, I'm going back to condos, townhomes, things like that, single family homes, both on water and off water. And the numbers here in terms of the active inventory tell a very, very different story. In fact, a polar opposite story from what those vacant lots looked like, at least in terms of the active inventory. If you look at this 10-year graph, we're obviously at an all-time high here, or at least a 10-year high in terms of the number of active listings that are on the market right now. You can see that we've kind of had some peaks and valleys back in quote-unquote the normal markets prior to the pandemic. And now obviously right after the pandemic hit, when we had that such high demand, the numbers went down, and we've really been climbing up ever since late 2021. So month after month, we've really been hitting some new inventory highs, especially this past 12 months. And February is no exception. We are at a 10-year high with 4,223 active listings on the market in the month of February. That's up from January, where we had 3,983. So we're hitting all-time highs in terms of active inventories. That's usually not necessarily a bad thing if our absorption rate is really high. So if we have a number of monthly sales that is, pacing up with that increase in inventory, that wouldn't be such a bad problem. But we had 421 sales last month in this category, in the residential category, and that puts us right at about 10 months of inventory in the month of February. And I want to show you this graph. This is months of inventory. When I talk about months of inventory, basically I'm saying, if you had 100 properties out there and you're selling 10 properties per month, that gets you 10 months of inventory. In other words, how many months does it take to sell all the properties that are actively on the market, given the rate of monthly sales? So if that makes sense, hopefully, this is the 10 months of this is the months of inventory graph for the last 10 years. And again, we've had peaks and valleys, and usually about this time, January is typically the high month for the year when it comes to inventory like this, because again, like I mentioned earlier in the video, we have fewer sales that close in the month of January, mainly because people aren't shopping for homes as much around the holidays in November and December. So you're going to see that spike up, and of course we saw that spike up, and we were actually at a 10-year high in terms of monthly inventory in January. We had 13 months of inventory sitting on the market in January. We're back down to 10, which 10 is about where we were looking in 2014, or around this time in 2014. Really, 2014 wasn't that great of a market. We were still had plenty of foreclosures on the market. We were coming out of that downturn from the 2008 financial crisis. So at least maybe we're not at a 10-year high. When we look at the 2014 numbers, we were exactly at 10 months of inventory in February of 2014, but 2014 is not really a market that we're trying to strive for by any means. So I'm about to lose my voice. Let me go through a few different categories of these properties. We'll break these up just like I did with the sales data. But let's start with off-water single-family homes. We have 12 months of inventory back in January. We're down to 9 months of inventory in February, so this category is doing a little bit better. We had 2,397 active listings on the market in the month of February. And again, we are at a 10-year high in this category. We're up about 51% from February of last year. February of 2023, our inventory is up about 51%. 51%, and that equates to about 9 months of inventory Jumping over to golf access properties, we're actually not at a 10-year high in golf access properties. Our absorption rate is actually somewhat reasonably good when you compare it to previous markets. So in January, we had 14 months of inventory. There were 853 properties on the market. We're down in February because our absorption rate, our number of sales went up. So we have more properties on the market in the month of February, 891 golf access single-family homes on the market in February, and that equates to about 12 months of inventory. But again, we're not at a 10-year high with those. We were higher in 2015, 2016, and 2019, so we're at least not in uncharted territory here. But in terms of the active inventory that's on the market, we're up 68% from this time last year. So, quite a bit. Obviously, in February of 2023, we only had 530 single-family golf access homes on the market. Now we've got 891. So again, a little bit concerning with that, but we're certainly not in unprecedented territory like we are with some of the other categories. And let me finish up with condos here. Condos is probably the worst category we've got here for the reasons that I've mentioned previously in this video, but January was a really, really starkly bad month in terms of the months of inventory that we had on there. There was only 483 condos on the open market in January. We're up to 523 now in February. February, we've got 13 months of inventory given our absorption rate for condos. But January, when it was even lower, we were at 18 months of inventory, and that's a massive 10-year high looking at these 10-year graphs. So we're up about 52% in terms of the active inventory from last February. So we're about pacing equal with single-family homes, at least in the active inventory. But certainly our absorption rate, our number of sales has been going down. So we'll probably continue to see all of these inventory numbers continue to go up as we get into the later months of the spring season. And then hopefully some of these properties will come off the market, they'll sell and they'll come off the market, and maybe the inventory will start to calm down a little bit as we get into the summer. But by and large, the inventory numbers are not really looking good, and we really can't continue to see these new record highs every single month and not expect some downward pressure on pricing. So I fully expect that we'll probably see, at least in some of these categories, particularly in condos, I think we'll see the pricing start to come down as we get into the summer months. So let's talk about what my advice is for buyers, and then we'll talk about what my advice will be for sellers, and then we'll wrap up with the summary and close this out, hopefully before my voice totally gives out. So if you're a buyer in this Cape Coral real estate market, what is my advice to you? What should you be looking at right now? Well, similar to what I've said in some previous monthly market report videos, I think you as a buyer have more power now than you have really in the last probably 5+ years. Certainly the number of active listings that are out there for sale right now are at all-time highs. So there are more properties, more sellers out there competing for a fewer number of buyers. So these sellers are having to make more and more concessions, either by price or terms. So you, as a buyer, you need to not be afraid to go in there and negotiate a little bit. I still don't think we're in a position where you can go in there and ask for 20-30% off the list price. That's just not what we're seeing in the market right now. But don't be afraid to go out there, especially if you have multiple choices out there in properties. Play these sellers one off the other, and try to get the best price and terms for yourself. Now, if you need to get a mortgage, obviously interest rates are not ideal right now. I think they're still above 7%. And certainly insurance rates are putting a hurt on affordability as well. But especially if you're a cash buyer, I really think the next 6 months are going to be crucial for you. I think you're going to be able to negotiate your best prices and terms in the next 6 or so months than you will probably in a few years, at least until we have a more substantial economic downturn overall. So, take advantage of this kind of high time in terms of active inventory. There's still a ton of buyers sitting on the sidelines for the affordability issues that I mentioned, like the high interest rates and the insurance rates. And so, if you can purchase in the next 6 months, I think you're going to get the best price that you're going to be able to get in a few years. So go out there, don't be afraid to negotiate, and try to get a hold of something, especially if you're a cash buyer, before these interest rates start to come down. Because once those interest rates start to come down, that demand's going to come right back up. Because like I said, we got a lot of people sitting on the sidelines. So next 6 months are pretty crucial for you as a buyer. If you're able to buy, go ahead and do so. All right, so if you're a seller in this Cape Coral real estate market, what do you need to be looking out for? Well, obviously, the situation is not ideal for you right now. Our pricing has still stayed relatively flat over the course of the last 12 months, but we're seeing more and more of these properties come on the market, and obviously we're setting 10-year highs in terms of the number of active listings in different categories of properties. So if you're a seller right now, you need to be paying close attention to the market. You need to be getting creative in terms of being able to market your properties. You need to offer some, maybe financing incentives. Maybe you need to pay some closing costs. If you can afford to hold some seller financing on these properties. I'm seeing a lot of seller financing going on right now. So you need to get a little bit creative in order to kind of appeal to the fewer number of buyers out there, and then kind of set yourself apart, set yourself and your property a little bit apart from the other active inventory that's on the market, because obviously a lot of these listings are getting lost in these 4,000+ properties that are on the market in any given property category. So be prepared to negotiate, be prepared to get creative, and do what you can to appeal to the fewer number of buyers out there. And if you're thinking at all of selling in the next year or so, you probably need to do it sooner than later, because if these inventory numbers continue to creep up, it's going to be inevitable that we're going to see the pricing come down. And if you don't get out in front of that downward trend in pricing, you're going to be kicking yourself here in 6 or 8 months when the pricing is lower than it is right now. So you need to get your property priced right now. That way you're not chasing the market as it kind of dips down a little bit. I still think in the long term, like I said, we've got a lot of people out there that want to be in this area. There's a lot of buyers sitting on the sidelines. So eventually when the interest rates come back down, and fingers crossed, maybe we even get some relief on the insurance side of things, and a higher affordability comes back to our area a little bit. I think our pricing will be buoyed a little bit, and we may even start in an upward trend again. Because like I said, at the end of the day, we still have a ton of demand wants to come into this area. It's just kind of sitting on the sidelines right now. So I think we're going to have, at least for the short term, maybe a little bit of dip in pricing as this inventory continues to go up. So be paying attention to the market. Make sure you're in contact with your realtor. If you don't have a realtor, obviously get in touch with me. I'll keep you up to speed on what the market's doing. I'm going to give you the best advice and get some creative ways that you can market your property and get it sold now for the most amount of money. So that's my advice to sellers right now. You really need to be paying attention and looking hard at what the numbers are doing and what this market is doing. And if you can sell now, make sure you got it priced right. Get out there in front of the most buyers that you can, and get that highest dollar before these prices start to come down a little bit. All right, so just to summarize, the main thing that I want you to take away from this Cape Coral monthly market report is active inventory is rising. It's inevitable, if that trend continues, that we're going to start to see some pricing come down, at least in the categories that I mentioned, where we're hitting 10-year highs in terms of the number of active inventory and the number of months of inventory that's sitting on the market right now. So we're going to pay very close attention to that as we move into the highest months of our big spring selling season. Hopefully our number of sales continue to go up, and hopefully this number of active properties that are on the market at least flattens off or slows down in terms of the increases that we're seeing. Because if we do continue to see those increases, we're certainly in for a bit of a price correction. So we'll continue to pay close attention to that. I'll keep you up to speed on that on these monthly market report videos. So by all means, if you're not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. Even if you just are interested in the monthly market data, but also certainly because I try to provide a lot of great information on these weekly videos that I do as well. So I really want to thank you for being here and hanging in there with me with my voice issues this particular month. And I'll see you in the next video in a few days. Hopefully my voice will be back, but please remember to subscribe. Do me a favor, I work hard on these things, so if you wouldn't mind, reach over and hit that like button, just because it helps me out tremendously. Leave me a comment on what you think's going on in this real estate market. I'd love to hear your perspectives on things. And again, just thanks for being here. I hope you're subscribed, and I'll see you on the next video here in just a few days.